Hi Anaya, thank you for sending me your question about identifying linear pairs and vertical angles. So you kind of need to understand the vocabulary behind this. So a linear pair would be any two angles that form a line together. Okay, so what I mean by that is, like, for example, maybe look at the line L. And that can be formed from two angles. It can actually be formed using angle 1, which is not a 180 degree angle, and angle 2. Now when you put those two angles right next to each other, see how they form the line together. They actually form a 180 degree angle because 180 degrees is what makes up a line. Okay, so 1 and 2 would be a linear pair. There are lots of linear pairs on this diagram. We could have actually picked even like 2 and 3, because together 2 and 3, they're right next to each other and they form this line together. 2 and 3 would add up to 180 degrees. And so on. We could have picked down on the bottom, for example, 5 and 6, or 8 and 7, or 5 and 8. But those would be angles that form a linear pair because they're basically right next to each other and they form a line together. Now, on the other hand, let me actually erase a bunch of that. Oops. Maybe. Well, I'll leave it. Okay. On the other hand, if we are talking about maybe vertical angles here, we're actually talking about angles that are kind of across from each other. So they're formed by intersecting lines. So, for example, angle 1 and angle 3 make a vertical pair, or a vertical set of vertical angles. Another example down on the bottom, maybe 6 and 8, because they're across from each other. They are formed by those two intersecting lines. So 6 and 8. Okay. Now, vertical angles are congruent angles. They will always be the same measure. So for example, if this one was 40 degrees for angle 8, then angle 6 would also be 40 degrees. They're congruent. If you look at them, they kind of look like they're the same size. Angle 6 is kind of the same skinny angle as angle 8. They're exactly the same size. So those are congruent. Now linear pairs, on the other hand, the first ones we did, those are supplementary, as in they add up to 180 degrees. That's what supplementary means. It's any two angles that add up to 180 degrees. 180 degrees is half of a circle, because a whole circle has 360 degrees in it. So half of a circle, that kind of forms a line. Any two angles which add together to form a linear pair would make 180 degrees. Those two angles would be supplementary. So basically anything we listed for part B to form a linear pair would also be a pair of angles that are supplementary. So like 1 and 2 would be supplementary angles. They are right next to each other on that line and they were a linear pair. Okay, so let me know if this helps with the vocabulary, and if you need any more help, feel free to give me a holler.